Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our panel, the subject of which is affirmative action in the Obama era. Ted Shaw is presently stuck in a car on the freeway. But we're going to start now because we all want to finish on time. And when he arrives, I will have the pleasure of introducing him. Well, some might say, why do we need to discuss this subject at all, now that Mr. Obama has shown that an African American can be elected to the highest office in the land with a majority of the white vote? Was Justice O'Connor unduly pessimistic in Grutter versus Bollinger by saying that race-conscious remedies would be needed for another 25 years? Was she off by 19 years? On the other hand, others would point to the lesser performance of minorities in educational achievement, participation in business management, and overall income distribution, and say that we still have a long way to go to eliminate that other phrase from Justice O'Connor from the Grutter decision, unfortunately, race still matters. To discuss the role that they expect affirmative action or diversity or race preferences will play in the Obama administration based on what they have seen so far and what they see in the future, we have a truly distinguished and able panel. I'm going to introduce them to you in the order in which they will be speaking. To my left is Shirley Wilcher. Ms. Wilcher is an honors graduate of Mount Holyoke College and the Harvard Law School. She has served in various government positions, her longest service being as Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Office of Federal Contract Compliance in the Department of Labor. She was the Chief Executive of the agency charged with the enforcement of President Johnson's Executive Order 11246, barring race and other discrimination in government contracts and enforcing affirmative action. She has received several awards for her role in promoting affirmative action, including the Rosa Parks Award for her efforts in advancing affirmative action from the American Association for Affirmative Action. Ms. Wilcher is currently the president of Wilcher Global LLC, a consulting firm that specializes in diversity management, affirmative action, contract compliance, and government relations. At the far end is Mr. Peter Kirsanow. Mr. Kirsanow is a graduate of Cornell University and received his Juris Doctor degree with honors from Cleveland State University, where he served as articles editor on the Law Review. His private practice of the law in Cleveland has focused on representing management in employment-related litigation as well as contract negotiations, National Labor Relations Board, and equal employment opportunity matters. Mr. Kirsanow has testified frequently before Congress on civil rights and labor matters, and most recently before the Senate Judiciary Committee in support of the nominations of Chief Justice Roberts and Justice Alito. Mr. Kirsanow was a recess appointment to the National Labor Relations Board by President George W. Bush in January 2006. He is also the chair of the Board of Directors of the Center for New Black Leadership and serves on the board of the National Center for Public Policy Research. To my left is Ms. Linda Chavez. Ms. Chavez received her BA degree from the University of Colorado and later did graduate work at UCLA. Starting in 1975, Ms. Chavez was employed by the American Federation of Teachers as the editor of their publications, where she worked closely with Mr. Al Shanker. She left the Teachers Union in 1983. She held a number of positions in the Reagan and George H.W. Bush administration, including a 4-year stint of service on the United Nations Human Rights Commission. In 1986, Ms. Chavez ran in Maryland as a Republican candidate for Senate against Senator Barbara Mikulski. Ms. Chavez is the founder and chairman of the Center for Equal Opportunity, a Washington, D.C. think tank which has generally opposed affirmative action policies in contracting, employment, and education. The Center has released studies documenting the extent to which race is a factor in college admissions. She is also founder and chairman of the Stop Union Political Abuse, a federally registered political action committee. She is a director of 2 Fortune 1000 companies and sits on the board of various nonprofit organizations, including the Campaign to Prevent Teen Pregnancy. She is the author of An Unlikely Conservative, The Transformation of an Ex-Liberal, or How I Became the Most Hated Hispanic in America, close paren. To focus our discussion, I looked to see what our president has said about affirmative action since his inauguration in January. In the wake of the Supreme Court's decision in Ricci versus DeStefano, which is more commonly known as the New Haven firefighters case, the AP Newswire asked President Obama to comment. With the wonders of modern technology, we can show you his full, unedited response.
Keep in mind that the Supreme Court didn't close the door to affirmative action if properly structured in this case. And
they're moving the ball.
They are moving the ball. And look, society evolves.
They're jumping the gun a little bit ahead of where society really is.
This was a very narrow case, so it's hard to gauge where they will take it. I'll be honest with you though. I've always believed that affirmative action was less of an issue, or should be less of an issue, than it's been made out to be in news reports. It's not, it hasn't been as potent a force for racial progress as advocates would claim, and it hasn't been as bad on white students seeking admissions or seeking a job as its critics has been. I think the way to move forward on race is to make sure that every kid from the time they're born is getting good nutrition, a good education, is succeeding in K through 12, and we're opening opportunities for all young people, because when everybody's got a level playing field, everybody's competing, and we've dealt with some of the legacies of discrimination that resulted in substandard schools or extreme poverty in some communities, then affirmative action ends up being an afterthought, and we can really just make sure that everybody's treated fairly in an environment that in which race is rarely taken into account.
I can add to that the July 28th press briefing by Press Secretary Robert Gibbs. Question: during the Bush administration, affirmative action in the federal government was quietly retired. Do you expect the president to restore these programs? Mr. Gibbs, I'm sorry, say that last part again. Question: do you expect the president to restore affirmative action in the federal government? Mr. Gibbs, I don't know what specific programs you're discussing. Question: I mean the federal affirmative action programs during the Bush administration were retired. Mr. Gibbs, are you talking about Section 8? That's FHA Section 8. Are you talking, question, yes, Section 8. Mr. Gibbs, I have to look more closely at what the Bush administration retired and the reasoning for that. Thank you. Finally, I will leave you with some research which we did to find out how affirmative action is or is not affecting the president's nomination of federal judges, something which most federal judges are interested in. I've shared this with the panelists. Mr. Obama has nominated 26 people to the federal bench since his inauguration. 42% of his nominees are white, 34% are black, nearly 8% are Hispanic, and 15% are Asian. These percentages can be contrasted to the general U.S. population and the population of lawyers and judges. The U.S. population is approximately 69% white, 13% black, 13% Hispanic, and 4% Asian. The population of lawyers and judges is much more skewed. According to the American Bar Association, over 90% of attorneys are white, 4% are black, 3% are Hispanic, and 2% are Asian. With those thoughts on the table, I'll let you enjoy the main event.